The cold penetrated every cell of his body, but he didn't flinch. Standing guard meant ignoring everything: pain, fatigue, even fear. Especially fear. But today was different. Today was unsettling. Guardsman Tobias March stood at the main gate of Buckingham Palace, his figure looming against the bright lights flooding the historic facade. It was business as usual: tourists, camera flashes, laughter. But something was wrong. He could feel it. The crowd moved in waves, as always, but amidst the chaos, his gaze caught on a strange detail. A man in a gray cloak, standing too long, too still, dressed like an ordinary passerby, but there was something predatory in his posture, in his gaze. Tobias did something he had no right to do. He turned his head slightly, just a little, and in the same instant, the stranger moved. Abruptly, too fast. A flash of metal, a knife, headed straight for the King's Gate. And that's when everything changed. Tobias sprang from his seat, his feet moving faster than his consciousness could command. A shout tore through the evening air. Halt! But the man did not stop. People were screaming. Some dropped their phones, some ran away, some just stood there in shock. And only Tobias knew this wasn't just some random intruder. This was a threat, a real one. His fingers gripped the carbine tighter. There were no ceremonies, no traditions. Only one rule: defend the palace, or die trying. The crowd scattered like broken glass. Panic, screams, movement in all directions. But Tobias saw only one target. The man kept moving, maneuvering among the people like a shark in water. The guardsman rushed forward. The training, drilled into his bones, kicked in by itself. Minimize distance, intercept, disarm. His hands gripped the weapon tighter, but he couldn't use it. Not here. Not among hundreds of innocent people. Seal the gate. His voice cut through the air, and somewhere in the background he heard the sound of locks locking. The man changed direction. Instead of the gate, he darted toward the side passage, to where the sentries were changing posts. Tobias knew that if he broke through, it would be a matter of seconds. A breakthrough. He shoved the frightened tourist with his shoulder, so as not to knock him down, and in 3 jumps he was next to the attacker. With a deft movement he tried to grab his arm, but he dodged sharply, as if he had anticipated the attack. A blow. The blade swept close to his side, tearing through his red uniform. Sharp pain flared on his skin, but Tobias gritted his teeth. He would not back down. A moment, and he responds. An undercut. The enemy loses his balance, but does not fall. Flexible, quick, as if he's trained for this moment. And he attacks again. Second flash of steel, knife at the guardsman's throat. But Tobias already knew what to do. A jerk back, a turn of the body, and now his rifle goes forward, not as a weapon, but as a club. A blow. Clear, precise, right in the hand. The blade falls to the rocks. The man doesn't scream, doesn't even wrinkle his nose, but there's a glimmer of realization in his eyes. He's lost. But he had a backup plan. With a loud thud, something metal falls to the ground. Small. The tourist's fear-filled eyes widen. A grenade. Shit. There was no time. Tobias lunged forward, his fingers closing around his opponent's wrist, snapping his arm with inhuman strength. The man roared, but not in pain, in rage. He tried to break free, but the guardsman had already intercepted him with his other hand and threw him to the sidewalk. The moment of truth. Tobias didn't know if the grenade was activated. He couldn't take any chances. He jumped on it, covering it with his body. 1 second. 2. 3. Silence. The grenade didn't go off. It's a training grenade. A moment later, a heavy hand rested on his shoulder. A partner. Running officers. Radio chatter. Everything blended into a single picture. Tobias stood up heavily, blood oozing from the wound in his side. Inhale. Exhale. He looked at the man, who was already being twisted and dragged away. Who the hell are you? But the man only grinned. Then Tobias realized that this was not the last attack. It was only the beginning. Tobias sat on a hard plastic chair in a small briefing room where the clock on the wall ticked too loudly. His fingers were clutching the bloody bandage on his side, but the pain was not what was tormenting him. No. Something didn't add up. The grenade was a training grenade, Captain Harper repeated, looking at him over his glasses. No explosive. And the knife was a blunt, circus prop. It was a provocation, March. Just a diversion. Just. I could see the frightened faces of the tourists, the scream of the child, the squeal of brakes in the distance, and the grin of the bastard being led away in handcuffs. Who is he? Tobias' voice was hoarse but firm. Fake ID. False prints. Clean as a new coin. Harper frowned. The intelligence services are already working on it. Your job is to rest. Infirmary, 24 hours off duty. Got it. But Tobias didn't hear. His mind was racing. If this was just a ruse, then what was the real purpose? Rain pelted the streets of London, washing away the day's bustle. But the palace had a life of its own, and somewhere in its depths something was going on that even the officers might not know about. Tobias stood at the window of his small apartment, staring out at the wet lights of the city. Why him? Why today? The phone vibrated on the desk. An unknown number. A second's hesitation, and he answered. Guardsman March? A woman's voice, smooth, professional, but there was something else behind it. Who is it? The wariness came into the voice all by itself. There's no time to explain. If you want to understand what happened today, go to Waterloo Bridge. Alone. 20 minutes from now. If you're late, you'll be left wondering. Click. A beep. He looked at the phone, his heart beating faster. It was a trap. It had to be. Or a chance? Damn it, he muttered, grabbing his jacket. The bridge was nearly empty. The wind threw droplets in his face, getting under his collar. His heart was pounding, and his fingers kept checking the utility knife hidden under his clothes. You're here. Quickly. A woman stepped out of the shadows. Her hood hid her face, but her eyes, those eyes knew too much. Who are you? The words came out sharper than he intended. Someone who's still trying to save your skin, she replied dryly. Today's attack is a smokescreen. Tomorrow, 9 o'clock, changing of the guard parade. They'll strike then. Tobias went cold. Thousands of people. Live. The royal family around. Why are you telling me this? Because there are some things that shouldn't happen. Even for us. Us? He took a step forward, but she was already retreating into the shadows. Listen carefully, March. It's bigger than you think. You can't trust anyone. Not even your own. Especially your own. The rumble of a passing car, and she was gone. Tobias stood in the rain, feeling the ground slipping away from under his feet. If she's right. If the traitor is inside. Tomorrow. 9 o'clock. The game has just begun. 8:57. The palace square of Buckingham Palace was crowded. Hundreds of tourists crowded around the fence, pulling out their phones, smiling, unaware that today could turn into chaos. Tobias stood in formation. Back straight. Face masked. Carbine in hand. Perfectly polished. Heart? A frantic drum. 8:58. The woman's words were haunting. You can't trust anyone. But how? Lieutenant Rivers, who had assigned him here. Captain Harper? Or any of the guys around him? James? Peter? They've been through the bloody training together. And now, can one of them prepare a strike? 8:59. Everything inside was screaming. Break off. Alert command. But, zero evidence. And a breach of protocol during a parade is a court-martial. It's all against him. But if he makes a mistake, it's worse for everyone. Lieutenant Rivers walked to the front of the line, his eyes fixed on Tobias. You all right, March? Steady voice, but something in his eyes was wrong. Too calm. Yes, sir, was the almost automatic reply. But there's a storm inside. 9 o'clock. The orchestra began to play. A solemn melody spilled over the square. The crowd erupted in cheers. The screams of children, the clicking of cameras. And then he saw it. A man at the wrought iron gate. He looked like an ordinary tourist, camera in hand, but the look in his eyes, not looking at the guards. He's looking at the roof of the palace, watching, waiting. What are you looking for? A flash of light on the roof. A sniper? No, too fast. Laser tag? Damn it. Tobias did the impossible. He's out of commission. Right in the middle of the parade. The screams around him merged into a single rumble. The lieutenant shouted, March. Return to your post at once. But he was already rushing across the square. The guardsmen and officers froze with shock. No one moved. The protocol had them in a state of stiffness. And time melted away. Everybody down. Tobias shouted, rushing toward the man with the camera. He jerked, lunged, but Tobias jumped, knocking him to the ground. The plastic casing of the camera shattered. No lens inside. Explosives. Timer. 10, 9. His heart was tearing his chest. He ripped off the device, fingers frantically searching for the wires. 7, 6. Stay where you are. A familiar voice, James. But there's no time. It's a bomb. Tobias shouts back. 5, 4. March, stand back. James is aiming, but what will he do? Shoot the charge? Too late. 1 second. Tobias has pulled the safety. 3, 2. Breathless. 1. Click. Silence. The world froze. A second. 2. Alive. But the joy lasted a moment. The man beneath him grinned. Too late. The second charge has already been activated. Tobias turned pale. The second. Where? Shouting on the radio, there's a second device at the gate. We have children. Adrenaline in the blood. The rush. Run. The world is a blurred tunnel. Guardsmen are panicking, trying to get people out. But time. There is no time. And that's when he sees her. That woman. Standing at the edge of the square. Watching. Doesn't leave. Eyes meet. She nods. Barely perceptible. It's on you. Fuck. Throwing forward. The crowd, the hands, the faces all past. Backpack on the sidewalk. Timer. 0:05. 0:04. No choice. He jumps. He's covering himself. 0:02. 0:01. Darkness. Noise in his ears. A voice. Is he alive? Pressure's dropping. Blood loss. Guardsman March, can you hear me? Answer. He's opening his eyes. Everything's blurry. But he whispers, in the blast? Disarmed. You bought time. His head falls back. One last thought. If this was a distraction, then what are they missing now? The game continues. If this was a distraction, then what are they missing now? The last words swirled around in his head as the world sank into a gray void. Darkness. The noise in his ears, like the surf, only with a dash of voices, commands, rumbling footsteps. The smell of antiseptics. Plastic. Metal. Consciousness returned abruptly, like a splash of icy water. Eyes flew open. The ceiling. White, bright, merciless. The pain in my side, searing, twitching. My hand instinctively reached for the bandage. Quiet, quiet. A voice nearby. A woman's. A nurse in uniform. Don't move. You've got 2 cracked ribs and you're in shock. How much? Wheezing. My throat's dry. How long has it been? 2 days. She shook her head. You were pulled out at the last minute. Hell knows how you survived, March. 2 days. My heart plummeted. If a second strike was planned. What had they done in those 48 hours? The door opened. Captain Harper walked in, eyes like steel. Behind him, Lieutenant Rivers. Tobias immediately tensed. Rivers. A calm look. Too calm. Guardsman March, Harper began abruptly. You broke protocol, broke out of formation, put hundreds of people at risk. But you also averted a disaster. The royal family is safe because of you. But Tobias was barely breathing. This was not the end of the conversation. Rivers spoke, voice smooth, almost oily, but we're screwed. A big one. A damned one. Immediately after the incident, there was a cyber attack on the Defense Department's internal network. Someone hacked the accesses during the panic at the parade. While everyone was looking at the bombs, the real target was digital. A distraction. Just like that woman said. What was stolen? Tobias tensed, pain recoiled, but he didn't look away. Harper hesitated. Secret royal travel itineraries. Security code protocols. He paused. Active operational list of special forces. Blood ran cold. Tobias swallowed. They know who's guarding the royal family where and when? Worse, Rivers tossed the folder on the table. They have lists of undercover agents. If they leak that data, Britain loses people all over the world. The world shook. All the effort, all the saving people on parade, and they were still one step ahead. And who's behind this? Tobias barely got a word in edgewise. Harper and Rivers exchanged glances. Rivers sighed, see. We've got one lead. A camera on Waterloo Bridge picked it up. He pulled out the photo. The same woman. Cold eyes, hood. Only now. She had an MI6 badge on her chest. What? Is this a joke? Tobias felt his insides crumble. She said. She warned me. Or set you up, Harper said dryly. Her name is Elaine Carter. Former intelligence operative. Officially killed in an operation in Eastern Europe 2 years ago. But as you can see, rumors of death were greatly exaggerated. My head was spinning. She knew everything. She sent him, but why? And now what? Tobias asked hoarsely. Rivers held up another folder. Now we go after her. We have her last location, an old abandoned subway station. You want to lay in a hospital, no one will judge. But, he paused. You're in this up to your ass. And honestly, we need you. She didn't choose you at random. There was no choice. Tobias sat up slowly. His ribs were aching. His head was spinning. But there was fire in his eyes. Give me the damn uniform. We're going after her. The abandoned Bromley by Bow tube station. Darkness consumed everything. Dampness dripped down the brick walls. The air was thick with the smell of mold and abandonment. Did they ever teach you in the movies not to go into places like this? Rivers muttered, checking his gun. This is London, Tobias shrugged. Every other tunnel here has either buried treasure or terrorists. The jokes were just to avoid hearing his own heartbeat. His fingers trembled, but his resolve was like a rock. The hum of lamps, the creak of old doors, and a voice. A little late, March. But you came. I knew you would. Elaine, standing in the middle of the empty hall, hands raised. Face a mixture of regret and determination? Why? Tobias stepped forward. You helped me, and then you set up a data theft. How many people are going to die because of this? As many as died when London betrayed his people. Her voice became sharp. You and I are pawns. You think they're just terrorists? No. They're your own people. From the inside. Rivers swore. Enough bullshit. We have orders. Hands behind your head, Carter. Sure, she grinned, and threw something under her feet. Smoke. A flash. Screams. Close your eyes. Tobias collapsed to the floor, but the world was already spinning. Everything was lost in the chaos. Ringing in his ears. Shadows. Someone grabbed him, held him down. He struck at random, air. Voices blurred. Too late. Data gone. The crown is the next target. The crown? Not just the royal family. The inauguration of the crown prince. Live. The world's attention. Millions of eyes, and the perfect target. The darkness was closing in. The last thing he heard was Elaine whispering, I'm sorry, but I have to. It's more than you think. A lot more. The royal inauguration was in 12 hours. And it was just beginning.